You don't get to be a 7-time All-American in the 800 without a ton of consistency. Years and years of injury-free training and properly executed racing strategy. What happens when that consistency gets interrupted, though? Robert Heppenstall found out when he tackled his first real injury as an athlete, keeping him on the sidelines for nearly 2 years. Robert is back though, soloing a 224 1000 a couple weeks ago, and he recently moved stateside from his hometown Hamilton to join the district track club as an Under Armour athlete. This is a pivotal time for Robert, not only coming back from an injury, but making the transition from a collegiate to a pro athlete. And this week, we talk about all those things. I'm Michael Rokas, and Robert Heppenstall is coming up on this week's episode of the Terminal Mile. All right, man, 224.02 solo 1,000 meter at Campbell City. You're with a new track club as well. You're pro now. That's changed since the last time that we talked. I feel like it's been a pretty long while, not just since you've been on the show, but where I want to start is, it feels like it's been a minute since I've seen you race at all. Like the results just like haven't been there. Where have you been for the last couple of years?
Yeah. So it's actually funny. So the last time we talked would have been March of 2019, right? Somewhere around there, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had just come off like a pretty good indoor season, and then roughly about a month after, I actually had a pretty bad injury. I ended up having some plantar fasciitis problems, which is kind of like the worst thing that a runner can go through. And when I first went through it, I tried to sort of cross-train through it, and it ended up developing into a worse and worse injury. Pretty much, long story short, it ended up cutting my season, that 2019 season, and like I had to shut it down. And then ended up having to shut down the 2020 season as well, due to the fact that it kind of developed into a plantar fascia tear, which sort of made me take a step back and reflect on what I wanted to do to attack this. And my plan of attack was taking the long approach. I didn't want to rush back into anything. Prior to the Olympics getting postponed in 2020, I had already had my mindset on, you know what, I'm going to take the long-term approach. I'm going to rest my body. I'm not going to try to force anything for the 2020 season. And I just told myself I'm going to make sure that I'm going to come back 2021 and try to go for Worlds. And then obviously sort of the pandemic happened. And long story short, I get another attempt this year. So that's kind of what was going on with me in the past about 2 years now, just dealing with one of my first major injuries that definitely took a toll on the past 2 seasons.
Oh, for sure. You know, I don't know if you caught it, but we had CPT on a couple episodes ago, and we kind of talked about this about injuries being almost a really not great way to learn, but a way to learn all the same. So like what do you think that you really learned, and what are you going to bring forward with you from this injury, do you think?
Yeah, like I guess like up until March of 2019, I had never endured any injury longer than a week. I wouldn't even consider that an injury at that point, just more of like a soreness. Like every year I would get sort of sore calves from running in the winter. I would maybe get like a little tight, like little bits of like hip tightness here and there, but nothing that would keep me out of a race, not to mention a season. And I think what my injury taught me, kind of looking back, was that you really need to listen to your body. And everybody out there wants to run fast. Everyone wants to go out there and crush workouts, crush mileage. Like everyone wants to be successful, but sometimes you gotta listen to your body. And I think the one thing that I learned was that you need to, if your body says I'm not ready to go, you do not go, and you do not push that limit of, like, there's a difference between being like sore from a workout and potentially becoming injured from it. And I think over a certain amount of months, I had just been ignoring new pains that were coming through my body, and I wasn't taking care of myself in terms of I could have been like stretching more, I could have been rolling out more, little things like that. And I really learned the value of maintenance through the recovery period, because like like being a younger runner and not being injured, you kind of develop this like the Superman mentality, right? Like you develop this mentality, like I can go run how many workouts as I want, I can run as fast as I want in recovery runs, and I haven't been injured yet, so nothing's happened. There's nothing bad that can come from this. But I think like I said, my injury kind of built up over months and months, and working really hard, doing doing something like too much at one time, right? So I was doing more than I needed to at that point in the season. I was really gearing up for a big outdoor season 2019 to try to go qualify for Worlds. And I think I just didn't listen to my body in the meantime. So the biggest lesson that I learned is just, for anyone listening to this, just make sure you listen to your body, and because it's never going to lie to you. It's always going to tell you exactly what's going on, and that's sort of the biggest thing that I took away. So even to this day, if I feel anything kind of going wrong, like personally for like my lower body, I make sure that I'm stretching, I'm rolling out, I'm elevating my legs, ice bathing, like whatever I feel that I need to do in order to make sure that I can come back and stay injury free for the next season.
Oh man, that's such a huge lesson to learn, and taking that over 2019 and 2020, it must have been all that much more sweet for you. 2021 Campbell City running 2:24:02. What does that time mean to you, especially running it solo on an indoor track?
Yeah, like honestly, like it's definitely a full circle moment. Like, kind of where I started my collegiate career. My first race was at Campbell City, and like I had a lot of experience with JDL. Kind of going into my first like race, and like it was like about 23 months. I had no idea. I had no true idea where I was at. I've been doing really good workouts like up in Canada solo. I've been doing a lot of good training and like being very consistent, and definitely taking things slowly for the past about a year. So again, I like in the past I had I always had an idea of where I was at in the season. Like any month that I was in, I could kind of tell you where I was. But going into like my first, I guess you could call it a race. I was the only one in the race. But going into like my first real attempt at a time, I was just trying to get a good effort out of it, and I did not know what to expect. I had a rough idea of where I was, just based off a few indicator workouts, but again, I hadn't truly known where I was. So just finishing that and getting that really tough effort was very important for me, and it was special. I mean, it's one of those things where you're kind of, when you're in like the heat of an injury and you're kind of at your worst of an injury, it's really hard to mentally see yourself being to where you were, if not better, because like 18 months prior to that, I would not have like imagined myself being able to run that fast again. Sort of the pain, like after going through the pain that I went through with my injury, but just crossing the line and feeling like my body was healthy, I was definitely in the right mindset. It was very special to me, and I'm very excited sort of moving forward into the outdoor season, and just getting some really quality work in.
So you said you've done the Campbell City thing before. One thing that you haven't done though is I believe you were flying from up here in Hamilton down to the States to Campbell City in the middle of a pandemic. How is Campbell City and the whole travel thing getting there? How is that different from the first time you were there?
Well, I'm in DC now, so I arrived to DC the Monday before Campbell City. to represent Under Armour at the district track club. So I arrived on Monday, and then we left for Winston-Salem on the Thursday. And then so it was a little bit of a quick turnaround, but it wasn't too bad. But Campbell City is definitely different. I feel that when I got there, even though I knew we were in the midst of a pandemic, I expected it to have that crazy Campbell City vibe that it's always had.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I give Craig Longhurst so much credit for putting on the meet that he did, because it must be impossible right now to be a meet director trying to go through all the loopholes, like trying to jump through hoops. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
And to put on meets for indoors, right, for pros, for collegians, like it's tough. So it definitely was the best I think it could have been, given the circumstances. So it was a lot different. I remember being in those Campbell City races, and it's like a zoo running when you're running. You can't even hear yourself think at all, especially in those close quarters. But again, I think given the circumstances, I think it was a very productive meet, and I think it was a great success. So I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. And so, I mean, like you've busted the rust now. You said you're excited to move forward. You're ready to move forward. But I mean, like there's that big question mark now. Is there anything on the calendar as far as that goes?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to stay here in DC, and I'm going to be training with Under Armour again. So we're going to be in a pretty big training phase for the next few months. And then we're looking at a few races in May, and just trying to hit some times. And I think we got a great group of guys here. We have so much depth here. We have guys, a couple 144 guys, 145, 146s. Like we have a bunch of 800-meter depth. And the next few months are going to be really, really good in terms of training. And the great thing about us is that we have so much depth that we can just put a few of our guys in a race and it's going to be super competitive, right? So I think with us traveling together and trying to get in meets together and racing together, we're going to be competing against each other, like in practice, in racing. Like, it's going to be always competitive, which is just going to drive us to be the best we can possibly be. So in terms of the schedule, not 100% sure yet. Again, sort of with everything going on, it's hard to exactly tell what we'll be doing and when we'll be doing it. But I would like to get into some pretty good races. Looking forward to May and obviously like nationals and going into June.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned DTC a couple times, District Track Club, down in Washington D.C. And I think obviously Under Armour, huge part of that. You are an Under Armour athlete now, which is super cool. So what is the transition to pro life been like, and like what's the biggest change from being a Wake Forest athlete to being a pro now?
Well, in all honesty, I have only recently got here in the past 2 weeks now. So I haven't seen the transition too much. I think the biggest thing that I've noticed, sort of knowing some pros and obviously knowing collegiate athletes, the one thing I would say is the NCAA has a lot of racing. That's what I've noticed. Just in terms of how many times people race in a year, like for a guy like me, like who does really well the more he races, it's definitely going to be a transition to sort of be ready at the right time, because we in the NCAA we race all the time, right? Like in terms of like conference to nationals to all the meets before that. You have outdoors, conference, like 4 rounds of the NCAAs. So there's a lot of opportunities to run fast in the NCAA. And from what I've noticed in the pros is some teams don't race as much. So that's going to be a transition for me is the bigger training blocks with the the less opportunity, not opportunities, but less times that pros race. So that's going to be a transition. Obviously, changing living situations is always going to be an adjustment. So it's one thing that I'm just going to kind of roll with the punches for the next few months, and just really let myself settle in that sense.
I want to ask you about the Under Armour stuff that you're wearing, just because they've really gotten into the run game fairly recently. But as far as like a running shoe brand goes, like I don't think that they've really built up the cred yet. So I want to know about the spikes. What can you tell me about the spikes? Like how do they feel? Especially, I mean, like at this point, you've run in probably quite a bit of stuff. Like what's the feel?
Great. Honestly, the one thing I love about these spikes, they sort of fit my foot like a glove. Like I have a very unique foot type. I have a very, very wide foot, and it's very difficult for me to find spikes that sort of feel comfortable. It's kind of been like the name of the game for the past few years. And these Under Armour spikes, honestly, like they fit me so well. I feel that. Forget that I'm wearing spikes sometimes, and I know that like the spikes that I've worn in the past have like kind of crammed my toes or crammed my feet. But these ones, like I said, like I've had no problems with them. Typically, I would sometimes run in spikes before that would sort of give me like really tight calves and foot problems, which is kind of what sort of led to my injury. But these ones I've had zero problems with so far. Obviously I did the race in them. I did a few workouts, and I love them. They're the milers, like they're the miler pros. That's sort of what we have for the middle distance spike. And then for the distance spike, we have, again, I'm just looking at them right now. These ones are also called the kick distance. Yeah, kick distance. I've worn these a few times. The distance spike feels really good too. They both have similar feels to me, and just very breathable. I mean, they the one thing about spikes that I like is when, like I said, you don't really notice when you're wearing them, and you don't feel like you're just wearing a really tight, uncomfortable shoe. But they fit great.
Oh man, that's awesome to hear. That's awesome to hear, man. The 800 in Canada has just been wild over the past couple of years, and has just gotten so much more wild as well too. I'm sure you've seen the crazy results from this year. And just from AROP and man, it's just wild. As a fellow 800 meter runner, like how's that playing on you right now?
No, I mean, obviously there's crazy talent in Canada, and I've always been a big advocate of Canadian talent. I think there's so many kids given the opportunity that can run super fast across all events in Canada. Just even obviously being from Ontario, like alone, I've seen so many incredible potential athletes in track and field. And it's awesome to see. Like AROP is obviously doing great things on the track. I know he's expanding his range a bit. I saw him getting a really good mile. Obviously did super well in the 1,000. He can run a good 400, so he's doing great. I've seen other potential 800 meter runners coming up, and I think in the next few years to come, we're going to start seeing 800 develop a lot more in Canada. It's great to see, honestly. Me personally, like I sort of just try to focus on what I'm doing, and focus on training the way I know how to train, and try not to let sort of fast times, no matter what the event, no matter who it is, try to affect the way I train. Or if I see people running really fast now or in March, April, like I'm not gonna let that affect my training or my mentality kind of for attacking a season. So, but it is great to see, like I said, people running super quick right now, and that just makes me really amped up for outdoors and what we can all do in the same race together.
Oh, yeah, and speaking of increasing range and stuff like that, the last time we talked to you, you weren't that far off of your 341, 1500 meter, and you were a guy who was running open fours and eights and stuff, and that was a pretty quick time. What are you thinking as far as your future goes with like the 1500 and stuff like that?
I've been saying for 4 years that I'm gonna be a 15 guy one day, and I guess I even longer than that. I always say it. I don't even know why I always say it now. No one believes me, but I do see my future as a moving in the direction of a 1500-meter runner at some point. But for now, I think definitely based on experience, level of competition, who I've raced, and just overall training, I think the 800 will be the focus for now. But I would like to get into some very quick 1500s just to test sort of my ability up against the best right now. Just because I think that I can do a lot better, and I think I can get a lot more out of myself with it. I think the 1500, what I've noticed with it, at least personally racing it, is that in order to run very, very fast, it's great to have experience with the race. And I think the more I race it, the better I can do. The 800, like I said, I've done millions of them, so I think that my experience will take me farther than a 1500 would right now. But that's not to say that I'm not going to be developing into a 1500-meter runner in the future, just given some more experience. So I would love to get in like a race like Peyton Jordan one time, where everyone's trying to go for a fast time, and we're all working together to kind of maximize what we can do, especially at that time of year. And just to see what I can get out of myself. I would love to just cross the line knowing that I gave it absolutely everything I got, and kind of testing where am I in terms of this race, and like can I pursue this further and kind of transition to this sort of race. But that's definitely going to be in the future, I believe.
No, fair enough, fair enough. As you know, as far as that future goes, what is the profile of the DTC? Like, is it a lot of like mid distance guys? Like, are you in good territory as an 8 guy? Will you be in good territory if you decide to make that jump to 15? Or hey, if you decide to be a 5 guy one day, if that ever happens, is this a good place for it?
Oh, it's in terms of depth. I don't see any other. I can't really think of, just in terms of straight depth, like any 800-meter group that's really better than what we got right here. I mean, we have tons of 146 guys, 145 guys, 144 guys. We've had guys that have multiple people who have represented the different countries at the Olympics. People who have won at Worlds multiple times, tons of experience, and we got a great training group here. And the one thing that I think that we have is we're all very competitive, and I've noticed that especially at my first practice with the team. I did like my first official workout with them the Wednesday before JDL, and I can already tell that we're all super competitive, and we're all going to bring out the best in each other. And so anywhere from 144s to 146s, like, we got it all. And I think that as we progress this season, I think we're looking for some pretty big results from the team across the board. And we're just going to try to, like I said, load up some races and get really competitive.
Oh man, I'm super looking forward to that. You just came off of a long stint up here in Hamilton, and I don't want to blow up anyone's spot here, but I'm kind of wondering, this might be super self-serving. Oh, it's totally self-serving. But like, where are the best places, say for like an off-track tempo, or like what is the track to go train at here in the Hammer?
Well, I can't tell you the track to go to because no one's allowed on track. But if you had to jump a fence, I would say Bishop Bryan up on the mountain is where I usually used to go.
Uh-huh.
I would go there, train there. In terms of tracks, I like BT, Bishop Tonus. It's a pretty good track. If you want to do some tempos, obviously every Hamilton guy will tell you that the rail trail is the best place. I agree. Rail trail is great. You got every kilometer marked. I've done some hills up in Longwood Road on the west end there. Bayfront Trail is great. But especially like in this time of like when winter just passed, like Bayfront's great. I mean, it's not too crazy snowy. That's what I would say. But definitely, if I had to pick one spot, it'd be the rail trail. It's hard to beat the rail trail, I'd say.
Fair enough. You can't burn it too much going out. You have to realize that you have to take a little bit of a time cut, when you're heading out.
Of course. Of course.
Oh man, I just spoke to all 5 of our Hamilton listeners. I see you guys. Man, it's really good to see you, get that result back on the board, and it sounds like things are really moving in the right direction, especially heading into this Olympic year. I'm super excited to see it, and I'm super happy we could have you on the show this week. Yeah, do you have any last shout outs that you want to throw out there before we call it and watch some track and field tonight?
No, I'm good. That was awesome. Thank you again for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to this season.
That wraps up another edition of the Terminal Mile. Big thanks to Robert for being on the show this week, and best of luck to him as he takes on a big outdoor season this year. Hey, if you like the show, be sure to subscribe and give us a good rating wherever you're listening to this, whether it be YouTube or any of the major podcatchers, and be sure to pass this along to some of your teammates as well. That's how we can really keep this thing growing and keep it alive. As always, thanks for listening. This has been the Terminal Mile. My name is Michael Rokas, and remember, support your local Twilight meet.